Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out on a day after 2 days off. I know it's kind of weird, right? Coming to school Monday and Tuesday, having 2 days off, coming back. It's kind of hard on all of us, parents, children, teachers, trying to get acclimated to our routines again. So, sure. Thank you for coming out. My name is Giovanni Aramis. I'm the school counselor. I've been at PS10 since 1999. However, I've been in the district as a teacher as well. So altogether, I've been around for 27 years almost in February. I've been doing the articulation process since 1995 when District 15 became a district of choice. We used to have zone schools where kids that came to PS10 automatically went to MS-88. And that was changed. And so now we have this program that has evolved. In my experience with this program of choice, it has improved in a lot of areas. Every year they make little changes that improve the process. A lot of that has to do with, I'm very involved with speaking to the person who's in charge of this program, Sandy Ferguson. And I meet with him through the United Federation of Teachers. I'm probably going to try and meet with him on Monday to see how we can even better the process further. Because things change, families change, policies change, and so we try to roll with those things, with those changes to improve it for all of us. Okay? So I just wanted to give you that little tidbit. You guys know Mr. Felberg, right? Those of you who don't know Mr. Felberg, he is our new assistant.
So I'm Gabriel Feldberg, and I have not been at this school since 1991. I've been here for a few weeks. But speaking today, I'm joining Mr. Aromas in presenting sort of... Let me take you through what's in the presentation. I'll tell you where I'm going to insert myself in. So what's ahead in this presentation? First, Mr. Aromas is going to guide you through a very factual presentation about how the process works, and it's organized chronologically. So it's going to start in the early fall with researching and visiting schools, and then later in the fall and into the beginning of the winter when you actually rank middle schools according to your choices and submit an application. Once middle schools receive those applications, they will begin their process of interviewing and testing and auditioning students. And then finally, is the springtime when placement offers are received. And you find out what your choices for middle school, and how you proceed after that. So that's the factual component of it. In this, we are just going to alert you to the fact that this is a process that continues to change. So as Mr. Aramas speaks, you'll be aware of some caveats about information that might be updated based on what we're hearing already about how the process continues to evolve. And then finally, I'm going to close by offering some considerations about helping your fifth grader feel comfortable through the whole process. This is a process that definitely promotes some anxiety and some stress, not in families and in kids. So we want to talk about the most comfortable way to do something that in the past has made, can be a complicated process. And I'm going to, as we do that, run through some of what I know from working with families, not only in the school where I used to be an assistant principal in another district, but actually working with them across 6 different New York City districts over time, and seeing that process from a number of perspectives play out. And I've gathered some other families' accumulated wisdom about the process to sort of share with you, and to guide you as you get to focus on really the best of 5th grade and making a good choice ahead. So with that,
so these are the phases of the articulation process from the beginning to the end, right? You already had conversations with me. You've been doing your research. You've been looking online. You've been looking at schools. Some of you may have kids that have graduated in the past. I see some familiar faces from some kids that went to other schools. And so some of you, this is like a second run, maybe even a third run through this process. There have been some changes since. Okay? So right now, as of October and September, we are doing that homework. What I suggest is that you keep an eye on the websites of these schools. I'm talking about the District 15 schools and others, if you will, just so that you know when the tours come out. The tours, of course, are very important. To me, it's like trying on a pair of shoes. You don't know if they fit until you put them on and walk in them a little bit. When you're walking through that appealing. You're going to see if this is a place where your child wants to be or where you want your child to be. So that's very important.
I'm sorry about it. Does anyone need translation?
Is there anybody here who doesn't speak English? No. Spanish speaking, I know we had asked for Wendy, if someone needs Cantonese o Mandarin. Okay. ¿Alguien aquí necesita alguien para hablar, para entender en español? No? You?
No.
Okay. No. Thank you so much. And Wendy's here. Thank you, Wendy. Okay. The applications and the ranking of schools occurs in November, and the application will be, from what I understand, it's due December 1st. It's always due before the holidays. So this time frame from September to December is extremely important because you're doing your research, you're visiting schools, you get the application in November, and they give you about a month, a window of a month to actually start filling in your application. The application is not difficult to fill out at all. It's not a big thing. I'll show you an example of what it looks like. It's a pre-populated application, which means it has all your information, all your child's information already on it. Address, telephone number, ELA and math scores, whether or not they need special services, all of that stuff will be pre-populated on the application. Okay? Then, once you return those applications, I submit that stuff into a computer system, and then in January and February, those schools get the kids' names, the kids who are interested in their schools, and we start setting up interviews, testing, auditions, whatever those particular schools do. We'll get more into that in a minute. Then in May and June, in May, placement offers are sent out. You get a letter saying, congratulations, you've been accepted to school X, whatever that is. You get one letter, one offer. And in June is when the appeals process begins. It's kind of like a quick thing that happens. If someone is not happy with the offer that they get, you can appeal it. You can appeal any school for any reason at that point. It doesn't have to be something that you put in your original application. And I'm talking fast because I'm just going through this page. Okay, but we're going to go over it. Okay. Talk a little bit about how they research. This is a DOE website. Everyone should go in there and have that on their favorites and check it out. There's a lot, there's a chock full of information on that website. You even have the calendar for the process. By the way, most of you already got the guidebooks. This is a very, very little handy tool. Okay, in the guidebook, we have something that looks like this, your next steps. You should put that on your refrigerator door or mark it on your calendar. They don't give you specific dates because things happen and things get backed up, but they give you the month and what is happening during that month. Okay, someone called me recently and they were nervous because they thought the applications already came out. I said, no, they didn't come out yet. So this will help you a little bit as to what's coming down the pipe.
The applications that have all the student information, is that coming home in folders?
I will be sending those home, yes. The question was, are the applications going to be coming home in the home contact folder? Yes. We have to start getting them responsible for bringing those things home. So check those yellow folders every night because there could be something in there important. I already spoke to your children when I gave out this book about making sure they take that yellow contact folder home. They're now in 5th grade. They got to start getting used to taking things home that are important and making sure that your caretakers take a look at that. InsideSchools.org is a website, many of you may know it when you were looking for schools like PS10. InsideSchools.org is a website that's run by parents. It gives you kind of like a review of the schools from a parent's perspective, which is very helpful. And make sure that you schedule tours at open houses. Some schools have a sign up on the computer. When you look at their site, it's sign up, and you can sign up. You might be able to call them. Every school does it differently. But I think most of them now have gotten into the technology thing, so maybe you might be able to do it from home. Any questions about this so far? By the way, feel free to ask questions because your questions will trigger other thoughts in my head, and any information I have, I want to share it with you. Yes?
Are the tours something that our kids attend with us?
Yes. You can take your children to the tours. Tours are usually in the morning. Some of them sometimes are on a Saturday, which is kind of weird because nobody's around. You want to know when there's action going on. I think there's only one school that does that, but most of them are having in the morning. If you take your child to a tour with you, at the end of the tour, ask the person who's running the tour if you can please have a letter for the school to say that they were on that tour, and then bring your child back with that letter to get marked present. If you don't come back, you're marked absent.
Right.
The letter is almost like having consent for a trip. Okay, so that's a great question. Okay, the application. So the application will be pre-populated. Like I said, it will have the name, the address, the test scores, attendance. The attendance is last year's 4th grade attendance. Don't panic if you see something like a 5 on there. That's last year, not this year. Those numbers are locked in. Attendance numbers get locked in at the end of August. So those numbers can't be changed if there's an error at this time. But that's something that will be on the application. And that comes out in November. Section 1 of the application is the student information. Again, the address is very important. The first section of the application will have your address. Your address is very important because these applications are all going to look different. My application is going to look different than yours. Yours is going to look different than hers. Why? Because you are in a different area. Some of our parents live outside the district. We'll get more into that in a minute. So make sure that we have the correct address in case things are mailed to you. You're going to receive it. Date of birth, all that stuff is on there. If there are any errors, just let us know. If we have to make a correction, if you tell me today, the correction will take place on Monday. It always takes place the following Monday. So if you would have told me last Monday, hey, there's a mistake on my telephone number or something like that, and we change it, it won't take effect until the following Monday. It's a very slow system, but that's the way it works. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, just a...
Maddie side, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi, everybody. Just a point to make. In terms of, if you have changed your address, if you have moved, it's important. You may have filled out a new blue card with the new address. However, that's not the system. That's held by the office personnel and the teacher. The system is run by Carolyn Ramirez in the office. So you must, if you've changed your address, please go to Ms. Ramirez. She will officially change it in the system. Otherwise, the letter will be generated by the system to the old address.
And if anything needs to be corrected, just contact me right away. Yes. You got 1 and 2.
Section 3 on your slide is supposed to say attendance. It says section 3 for active learning.
Section 3 is the area that has the APLA scores and the math scores. Is that what you're asking?
Oh, okay, so I'm sorry. Because it says section 2 says academic information.
I think this is a place where one of those caveats about how the system may be changing comes in. What we're hearing preliminarily, and not officially, is that there's a move to sort of standardize the report card and other information middle schools receive. So different elementary schools use different informal report cards that they send home to families, but there is now one official, for the first time, I believe it was last year, citywide, 2 years ago, citywide, where every single elementary school was required to report into the same record-keeping and transcript system that every other school uses. So the academic information is now standardized in terms of what goes to schools. That, I believe, is what is going to be shared this year with all schools, so it will be consistent. It will not be a variable report card, even if there is one. With that information comes automatically attendance information from 4th grade, exam scores when they're present, we believe, and any other sort of standardized citywide information.
Like attendance and
So absences and weaknesses from 4th grade would be reported there. There have been years where 5th grade has been reported. 5th grade to up and through the first quarter or a third of the year has been reported as well.
this gentleman in the book on here.
What if we move on from the rest on the application?
If you move at any time, you should let us know so we can make that correction. Is that what your question is? If you move, you should. If you move, even if you plan to move out of state, you should still hand in an application just to make sure, because things happen. I've seen in the past where parents say, we're going to move, and then something didn't go right, and then they had to stay. We just want to secure a seat for every kid. So if just give us an application, we'll make sure that they get a seat, and then you have to move.
Okay, I guess my question is, move out of district close to November. Move out of district close to November.
Right.
Which which address would they look at in terms of your, does it matter, for example?
It does matter because if you live outside the district, you actually have more choice. I'll explain that in a minute. You're ahead of me, but yes, that does affect things, yes.
I was just asking about, as far as the application process, about the IEP.
The IEP, it states there,
Does that go to the school as well?
they're going to know, they have to know because they have to know how to serve the child. Yes.
Actually, I think there may be a change in that though too, because under the special education reform that's currently in New York City, it used to be that there were seats reserved in schools for particular educational, like for example, if your child's individualized education program requires a seat in ICT, integrated collaborative teaching classrooms, there were a reserved number of seats in every school for that. Under special education reform, there is a move to, just as every child is entitled now to enroll first in his or her zone school when it comes to middle school, that is now meant to be unseen information in terms of making that decision. So whereas before, every school might have had 1 or 2 classes worth of ICT, and your child was beyond those numbers, couldn't get into the school, they ostensibly have removed that provision from as an enrollment consideration. So it's not clear, I think, to me, whether or not IEP information will be reported on that. It's certainly IEP information may not be used to limit a child's ability to get into a school. So no, there is not necessarily a requirement of reserving seats or a number of seats that over above which kids can't get.
So this is what the application looks like. So if you look at where it says right in section 2, academic information, it says entitled to special education services. That'll have a Y or a letter or the word yes on it, and that's all it's going to state there. But again, it's automated, so the schools receiving are going to, inquire whether or not a kid needs a service in order so that they can accommodate them and give them the appropriate education. Yes.
So what you're saying is, like, say my kid just has related services, it'll just say that he's getting services,
Yes.
but it won't outline
Right.
specifically.
If a child has an IEP, just to make it a little easy, because some people think that special education means you're in a special education classroom. Any related services, anyone who has an IEP, an individual educational plan, a Y or a yes will appear next to that box. Okay?
Right. But just to be clear, under the reform, enrolling first and then the school receives the IEP and creates the program with the child. So there is no relationship automatically as far as we know between whether how a child's IEP, how a student's IEP affects that student's ability to enter a middle school when he chooses. That student gets in, and then the school figures out how to meet the needs of the IEP.
Okay, really quick. Section 3 is for school use only. I've had parents in the past put in those numbers. Please keep in mind that's for the teachers to complete. Because of STARS, the STARS program, that 4-card system that Mr. Felber was talking about is now in effect. That might be pre-populated, I'm not sure. That might look a little bit different this year. But the first page, this is the first page of the application. There's not much there for you to do except to see if there are any errors in terms of telephone numbers, addresses, misspellings of names, or hopefully not, but we never do. Okay, the bottom part is for me to sign. I usually sign the bottom just to say that I reviewed the application and everything was okay. Here are the schools in District 15. These schools will be pre-printed into your application, even if you live outside the district. It does not matter. You're attending PS10. This information is also inside the middle school guidebook. Okay. And then the last one there, MS 839. Someone was asking me about that school. That's a school that opened up last year, so we only have a 6th grade in there this year. Next year they'll have a 6th and 7th grade as they scaffold the school's grades. Okay. If we have time at the end, we could talk about the individual schools if anybody wants to know what they are, what they look like. Some of these schools are very large, traditional-sized middle schools. Some of them are a secondary school model. Mr. Ramos, what does that mean? That means that the school goes from grade 6 to 12. If you decide to stay in the school for high school, you can. If you want to apply for high school somewhere else, you can do do that as well. They give you that option when the kid gets to that grade.
I was going to ask you, if schools that go through 12, do you have to apply to go to the
To high school, when you get to that grade, they give you the option to stay if you're happy with the school, or you can apply out. We also have schools that share space. We have schools, middle schools that share space with elementary schools. We also have a middle school that shares space with the high school. A lot of times, schools that have shared space start and end at different times so that the kids don't really interact with one another. Some schools are on one floor and the other school is in the bottom floor. Some schools, the building is divided this way and one school is on one side, one school is on the other. So that's why it's important to go on these tours, is to see what's going on. One of the things I like to also tell parents is, hey, if you go at 3 o'clock, check it out, see what's happening. Right? Okay, it's always a fun thing to do. So those are the District 15 schools. On your application, you will also have borough-wide schools. We're going to go through different kinds of schools that you will see on the application that are available for your kids.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Just a question.
Sure.
About charter schools.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
We'll get to the charter school. Okay. There were 30 schools that were borough-wide, so I didn't want to burden you with just printing them all on there. They're in the book. When you look at this book, if you look at the book here, you can see that there's some gray pages on the top. Right? It kind of tells you where those schools are. The borough-wide school and the city-wide school. So there are about 30 of them. Borough-wide means that if you're a resident of Brooklyn, you can apply to that school. That's what that means. And that will appear on your application because most of you live in Brooklyn. By the way, the borough-wide schools, when you look at this book, on the bottom, some of the schools says there's a school-based application process. That's very important. Let me see if I see one here. For example, I don't know what this school is, I'm not even, but you're going to see it. You're going to have a little gray box on the bottom. And it's going to say school-based application process. What that means is that school runs its own ship. You have to contact that school to find out how to apply for that. They might even have their own applications. But you want to contact them and ask them, what do I do? If it's on your application, then you can apply. You can rank it. Okay, we'll talk about the ranking. These are the citywide schools. Citywide schools are for residents of New York City, any of the 5 boroughs. You can apply to these schools. Okay. Some of them have their own, it says it right there, their own school-based application process. It will not appear on the District 15 application. You have to contact them. Except for Mark Twain. Mark Twain is a school for the gifted and talented. So they have something called an RFT, Request for Testing Test. Was it RTF? Request for Testing Form, sorry. Request for Testing Form. So if you want Mark Twain to appear on your child's application, just send me a note, Mr. Ramos, please send my son, my daughter in class so-and-so, give me the name of the class, give them an RFT form. Which means, it's funny, you're requesting from me a request for testing form. Which means that once I give you the application, you fill it out and give it back to me, I'm able to put it in the system, and that school will appear on your application. It won't appear there unless you ask me for that form. Okay? Yes?
And there's no web-based process for that. It's all, I'm just curious, like, if that's possible.
If it's a web-based?
If it's possible to do that on the internet, or if I actually have to write you a note.
Just send me a note that you need that form, and I'll send it to you. And then just fill it out and give it to me. That's how we do it. Yes?
So there's an actual form that's just doesn't appear.
I use a system called SENS, Student Enrollment Management System, and I do everything through there. So when a parent asks me for that form, I actually go in and print it. The reason you're going to ask me for it is because I have to print it and it's pre-populated with your child's information. And then I hand it over to the kids. Yes?
So we ask you for it right away?
As soon as possible, yeah. Just send me a note, or if you want to give me one today before you leave, that's fine. Okay?
And what's your email address?
Goramas, Goramas, at ps10.org. Yep. Yes.
So if you apply for one of these schools, and let's say you get into one of these, are you also still doing the, District 15 application as
Yes.
well? And
Yes,
what if
sure.
you get, and can you get offers, let's say, from both, you know?
You won't get offers from both. Here's how the citywide school, I know for sure with Mark Twain, well, all of these schools are basically blind choices. What does that mean? A blind choice. I'm using BOE language, by the way, folks. That's what they call it. So what that means is, if I put down Mark Twain, they give you two choices to select out of a menu of things, right? So if your kid likes journalism and sports, those are two different things that you can apply for. It's like two choices for Mark Twain. They allow you two. So let's say I put journalism 1, sports 2, middle school A and middle school B in District 15, for argument's sake, right? Mark Twain will get my kid's name because they know that I put them down in the first round. First round is your first and second choice. Okay? So they will invite the kids in for an audition, testing type of thing. By the way, that will be a ticket that I give you. You can't go there without the ticket. That's also printed from that SEM system that I use. The schools that I put down 3 and 4 in District 15 will now move up into 1 and 2 choice in the district. So for example, middle school A and middle school B, those two principals will get my kid's name in the first round. So they just know, all they know, they don't know that I applied to Mark Twain. All they know is that, hey, this kid wants me in the first round. Then it's up to the rankings after that. What I mean by rankings is the principals also get to rank the kids. Right? So they put a ranking list together. So if I'm middle school B and you're Mark Twain and I outrank you, I get the kid. If you outrank me, you get the kid. Understand? I don't know what the ranking system in every school looks like. It might look different on how every principal in the middle schools do it. I don't know if it's uniformed or not, but I know that's how they do it. Okay? Any questions about that?
So all these schools are the ones that are blind. So if I put an 80 school and I put the District 15, then
some of them run their own. Some of them are school-based programs, right? Most of them. But like, for example, Nest, right? The second one up there. They have their they have their own application process. They do their own thing. It's different than Mark Twain. Okay? So you have to contact them, right? That will not be on your application. That one the only one that will be on your application is Twain because they do that request for testing form. They want to know what children need in terms of testing because if they have an IEP or they have a 504 and they need accommodations, they have to put that comes into place as well at those schools. Yes.
So Nest plus M, you don't submit an RFT review?
Right, it's only Mark Twain that asks for the RFT. Most of these schools, you have to contact them, they have their own process. Okay? Yes? Yes. Yes. You're going to definitely get one offer letter from the schools that appear on the District 15 application, whether it's a District 15 school or a borough-wide school, right? You're going to get that one letter in May. You could get one of these separate from these schools if it's a school-based school-based application process school, because they're running their own ship. That's very possible. Okay? What we ask is, I'm sorry?
You're not including Mark Twain.
No, Mark Twain, it's the only one that does it where you submit a request for testing form and then their school appears on the application.
But if you get an offer from Mark Twain, that's your offer.
Yes.
You'll get one from your district.
Right. You will only get one offer from what you put down on the application, right? And if Mark Twain is on the application and they select their kid, that will be the only letter you get. Yes.
I just have a couple of questions about that. First of all, is there a difference between 1 and 2, or are they the same?
Yes, it's a big difference. All right, so let's talk about the ranking because I'm getting questions about the ranking. So when you get your application, so we talked about that, right? RTs, that's what it's called, request for testing. Anyway, I told people taking pictures, so if you want to take a picture, that's fine. So how we rank the schools. On the other side of the application, on the second page of the application, you will see all the schools that your child is qualified for, is eligible for. Okay? And if you give me a request for testing form, Mark Twain will appear on there only if you ask for that. Then you start ranking the schools. Do you have to rank all of them? No. Mr. Ramos, how many do I put down? As many as you think are appropriate for your child. That's the answer. And that's going to look different for everybody. What you put down 1 and 2 is the most important choices you're going to make, especially the first choice. Okay? Everything is very important. Everything makes a difference. But in round 1, think of boxing. Round 1, you have your first and second choice. Your child's name will go to those 2 schools. Okay? So if I put down school A and school B, my kid's name goes to school A and school B. Those principals will start getting their teams ready and say, okay, we're going to start sending out interview letters. Sometimes they send it to me. Most of the time they send it to me and I give it to your child right away. I don't hold on to anything. I personally run upstairs and I put it in the teacher's hands. Okay? Those 2 schools, the ones that I put down 1 and 2, they don't know if I put them down number 1 or number 2. They don't know that. They just know that the kid put them down in the first round, they're going to bring them in. That's where all the action happens. All the actions happen in round 1. After round 1, we kind of lose what happens because things are happening behind the scenes that we have registered as folks who control what happens at that round. Okay? So, like I said, in January, February, they start calling them in for the interviews, and then that's when the principals and their teams, their selection committees, whatever they call them, they start ranking the kids. Okay?
This is just about Mark Twain now.
This is the whole process.
Okay.
People are asking me about how the choices are going before. Okay? So, first round is your first and second choice. Second round, round 2, bell rings, ding ding, come out. Choice 3, 4, and 5 are in effect. So that means if my child did not get selected in round 1, what I put down 1 and 2, their names will now go into round 2. You will not see that. That's something that they do automatically with the Office of Student Placement and Enrollment, with the principals. Okay, these kids didn't get in the first round, they send the names into the second round, and then it goes to choice 3, 4, and 5. What happens if they don't get in round 2? It goes into round 3, and that's choice 6 and up. Some people ask me, what about if I don't have a third choice? Again, you put down what you think is appropriate for your child, but the more schools that you find that are good for your child, the better choice, the better of a chance you're going to get of getting a school that you like. Okay? Yes?
Do you have any sense of how many kids end up getting fitted with the school in that first round?
We did very well last year, but I think Mr.
Yeah, we calculated 79% of PS10 students were matched in the first round, so about 4 out of 5.
Our kids are pretty much sought out by the middle schools. They grab a lot of PS10s. Yes?
Okay, I have one question. So is it true that all of the schools that you just listed as citywide schools are blind first and second choices?
Well, yes. Especially the, Mark Twain is the main focus on that, but the other schools, for example, let's say you apply to ICE, which is a school in District 2 in Manhattan. And the District 15 won't know that you're doing that because it's a school-based application process. They're running their own ship.
Say, for example, BSI, and that doesn't rank 1 or 2, and that also
That's going to be a blind choice.
that's why so the 2 District 15 schools will move on.
Yes. Yes. Right.
And my second question,
Warning about BSI though, just to let people know. BSI is a K through 8 school. A lot of times they take their own kids, so the seats are limited. But just wanted to put the point.
just in terms of this fire, do you want us to set up a quick sign up here, like a list of people?
We could do that. Maybe Maddie can get some paper and a pen, and we could do that.
Individual notes to
Yeah.
also as we're leaving.
We could do that. We could make a list. Is that good with you guys? Let's make a list and you write. Okay. Okay.
The rounds 1, 2, 3, so I get round 1 is your first and second choice, or your pseudo first and second choice.
Right.
Is it literally a separate time frame, or like if you don't get that first or second B15 school, then it's a later time when everything goes.
Yes. Good question.
If you don't get your first or second choice, then your kid doesn't know any other kids don't know.
We won't know anything until May, even in the first round.
Is it simultaneous or
Yes. Round 1 occurs across the board in the district for all the kids in District 15 elementary schools. They all get called in for interviews. A lot of the schools call the same school in on one day. For example, I know that New Voices on 18th Street will reserve, I think, like a Saturday morning for PS10 or something like that, and the kids come in for an interview.
But if I don't get first or second choice,
Right.
or fake first or second choice,
Everybody gets informed at the same time and name. Yeah, right. Once you submit your application to me, the next and last thing you will hear is, hey, come to our school for an interview. You go to the interview, everybody goes to their interview and their auditions. After that, it's like a ghost town. You don't hear anything till May. Because all the rounds are happening.
And then it's just appeal.
And then it's just appeal in June.
There's the information and then appeal.
Right, that's why I said from September to December is all the action. Right. Yes.
As far as interviews, if your child is like shy or awkward with adults they don't know, is there any way we crack them?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I actually do an interviewing class with the entire 5th grade. We role play it, and we do that. These are educators. These are not people that are going to sit there and say, why aren't you talking? These are educators. These are people that understand kids who are maybe, ESL students who may have a second language. They know they have to give them more time to respond because they're, translating things in their minds. If they see a kid is shy, that's not a bad thing. They might even like that. It depends. So these are educators. They work with kids. They understand kids. I won't be too nervous about that. I do the interview with the kids so they can know more or less, to relax and what they can do. Instead of tapping that pen like this, they could have a ball or something. And just if they ask if they're nervous, yeah, say, yeah, that's normal. These are educators. They know what they're doing. We hope. Everybody good so far?
Next question.
Yes.
In regards to 839.
I'm sorry?
In regards to
839?
And it says in the form and everything, the lottery aspect. Can you just explain how the lottery aspect interplays with ranking
Sure.
to, and whether or not are you really going to get a first round, chance at it? If it's really a lottery.
Okay. From what I understood from the principal of 839, that the lottery was only going to exist last year, its first year. So it shouldn't be a lottery this year. It shouldn't be. It should just be one of your choices.
On the booklet, it still says lottery.
All right, you know what? We'll check that out. We'll make a note of that, and then we'll text it to everybody. You guys signed up for the text? Yeah. Okay, good. We'll give that. But from what I understand, it was only for the first year. And that's a school that does not have a theme to it, because when they have all these meetings, town hall meetings with the DOE and the public, a lot of the parents in the community didn't want another themed school, like another school for the dance, another school for the math. They wanted to do something different. But they do have a lot of activities in that building in regards to those different things. Reciting outside of District 15. Okay? So if you live outside of District 15, let's say you live in District 13, your application will have the District 15 schools, the borough-wide schools, and the district that you reside in. For example, I'm using District 13. Those schools will appear on my application as well. So a lot of people will get nervous about being outside the district, and I understand that, but you actually have more choice than the families that live in the district. And you can rank, you can go in and out of the district as you're ranking them. You can do that. That's not a problem. Okay? Yes?
I'm sorry, I keep asking questions.
Don't say sorry.
So
Ask.
I'm one of the people who lives in that gray area where I'm zoned for
Water?
District 15 for elementary, but District 20 for middle school. And I've heard a lot of people in my position just automatically get the Dittman school. And what do I do with that?
So let me speak to that. Because, and thank you. So you don't say sorry, because that reminds me of things that we need to talk about. You can check your address on the DOE website to find out what district you actually live on. And I'm glad you asked that question, because there are people that live in a certain area where you're, and this sounds weird, you're zoned for District 15 elementary school, but you're zoned for a different district for middle school. That happens. Especially people that live in Ditmas, people that live near Sunset Park, some people that live near District 13. If you live along those borders, check on the DOE website whether or not. You can just type in your address and it tells you what district you actually live in for the middle school. It's very important, because some people in the past have people that were surprised. They were like, why did I get sent back to this middle school? I wanted this school in District 15. And they did get kicked back to their zone. And if somebody does get a school in their district, it's because what their rule is that every parent that lives in District 15 The only guarantee is that you're guaranteed a seat in District 15 if you live in District 15. Now, language is very important. I say guaranteed a seat, not a school. You're guaranteed an offer in District 15. Okay? If you live outside the district, will you get it offered? Yeah. Yeah, we get that too. Okay? Yes?
Great, but it says up there, if you live out, if you reside outside District 15, the school in your own district, or those will be listed on your outside page, so you get votes.
Right. You can pick from both.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
But then did the school prioritize the children who live in this, like, if I'm at a disadvantage living out of district, but my kids are
Not necessarily. I've had situations where someone that lived outside of District 15 got their first choice, and someone that lived in District 15 didn't get their first choice.
based on academic?
Based on criteria, whatever the selection process is, yeah. The people who have the most control of this process are the middle school principals. Because your kids choose them, and then they choose your kids. That's how it works. In a nutshell. Here and then here.
So the fact that you live outside of District 15, you went to District 15, we went to District 15, I went to District 10. What I read through it was that if you went to District 15 elementary school, that's the equivalent of living in District 15 in terms of your...
I wouldn't use the word equivalent. I would say you are eligible to apply to a District 15 school. Not equivalent.
But you're not guaranteed a spot in District 15 school as you would be if you were a resident.
You're not guaranteed a seat, correct.
Okay.
If you live outside the district. Yes.
Is there any way we can know how many seats are available in school?
Oh, in the school.
Yeah.
Yes, if you look at the bottom of the page, it tells you, actually, for example, let me see, really quick here. Yes. So, for example, middle school 88, for example, had 467 seats last year available for 6th grade. They had 1,347 applicants. So middle school 88 is a popular, highly requested school. Yes? Everybody's going to get, no. No, what they do is they call everybody in round one to those interviews or those auditions or whatever they do, whether you live outside the district or not. The reason they have this rule in place is because years ago, about maybe 9 years ago, the district made an error where they didn't place District 15 families in a District 15 middle school. And of course, that's not right. You live in this district, you have a right to have a seat here. If you live outside the district, nothing is guaranteed. Not even that one seat. Okay, that's just the way it is. It's, you know, okay? Well, as fair can be. Yes?
Okay, I think you covered this, but just double check. So you live outside District 15, and you don't rank any of the schools in the district in which you actually live. In other words, you only rank the District 15.
So let's say you rank 5 District 15 schools.
It's still within the realm of possibility to be only getting offer from another.
Great question. Everybody heard that question? If I live in District 13, let's say, and I put down 6 District 15 schools and I put none of the schools that I reside in, is it possible that I go back to my district? Yes. Yes, because if there's no room at the inn, they have to tell the people that live outside the district, I'm sorry, we love you, but there's no room. It's a fire hazard at a certain point. So yes, that's a good question.
If, for example, I receive 2 postcards for middle school fairs, one from District 15 and one from District 20, does it mean that I am eligible to apply for District 20 schools?
If that's where you live, yes, that'll be on your application.
Because I look in the map, our address is like in the gray area of District 20.
Yeah, you can go. You can go to both, yeah.
Okay.
And they give out pens, so. And lanyards, too.
There's not a limited number of rankings. You can rank as many as you want.
As many as you're going to be happy with. Okay? Don't put something down, obviously, that you don't want because you can't get it. So, yes? Is there what? Sorry? No sibling policy. Nope, not in middle school. Okay. Someone asked about charter schools. These are the charter schools that are located in District 15, but they have nothing to do with the Department of Education. They have their own application process. A lot of parents like to call this Plan B. In case they don't get something they like in the district, sometimes they look at charter schools in the area. Huh?
What if it was like your top?
What? Then you go there. And you tell District 15, that's a very good question. Everybody hear that question? What about if I like the charter school better than the schools in District 15? That's fine. For example, let's say I want the Brooklyn Prospect Charter School for my kid. I'm still applying for District 15 because I don't know if they're going to take me. Now, the charter schools do lotteries, right? So if I don't get in there, you want to see at least, something to fall back on. But if I don't like the offer that I get in June and I try to apply and I don't win I try to appeal and I don't win my appeal, but I do have a seat in Brooklyn Prospect, then it's separate. That has nothing to do with the process of District 15, but they do put it in here as, a choice or a backup. And some people can afford private schools. Some of us can't. I know I can't, but some people can. That could be another plan B just in case. Oh, by the way, on that point, I'm going to get right to you, okay? On that point, if you decide at the end of the school year, this is very important because someone brought this question to me before the meeting. If you decide to go to a school outside of the Department of Education, like a charter school, a private school, a yeshiva, a Catholic school, whatever it is, I need a letter. The school letterhead saying, Dear Mr. Ramos, this student has been registered and enrolled in our school. I needed to say that. They're registered and enrolled. This way we take your child off the system. Because what will happen is if I don't know you're going to a private school or a charter school, in September your child's name is going to be at a middle school where they're taking attendance, and then the next thing you know you have the Administration of Children's Services knocking on your door for educational neglect. So please let us know in June what you're doing. Try to make your plans. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Sometimes parents make a decision in August. I understand that. But as soon as possible, when you find out, 2 reasons. 1, you let go of a seat in District 15 that a kid might want. And 2, you don't have people knocking on your door. Okay? By the way, if someone gives up a seat to a popular school in District 15 from PS10, they will not give that seat to a kid at PS10. They will go back to the rankings that the principals had. Okay, so if I have 464 seats, I go back to the kid that I put down 465. And that's how they do it. Okay? Maddie?
Another quick caveat. It's really also about the idea that we need to send your records. So the DOE records are naturally transferred to the next DOE school. But if you don't have a DOE school, it is not necessarily known where the records should be sent. So, for the transcripts to be sent, please let us know where your child's going to school, if outside DOE schools.
And the bottom is a website, in case you want to, look up the charter schools and things like that. And by the way, you don't have to go to a District 15 charter school, right? You can go anywhere you want. So, charter schools like that, I think, I'm not sure, they have different policies. So please check with them first. This is what the application looks like when you're ranking them. There's an example of choice 1 and 2. That would be, if someone gives me an application like this, what tends to happen is that you are only going to be considered in round 1. So if your kid doesn't get into round 1, this is where a little bit of the anxiety sets in, and I understand because I'm a father too. If you do not get selected in the first round, what do they do with your kid's name? Oh, I have something I made up called the parking lot. The name goes into the parking lot, and after the process is over, they start putting names into schools where they have space. That's actually what they do. Can I get a school that I never put on my application? Yes. That can happen depending on what you do here. This is very important. Okay? So here's an application with a list of all the middle schools in District 15, and then there's some. Well, this is not a District 15 application. I see Manhattan in there, unless if it's a borough city-wide. No, that's not. That doesn't happen. Yours is going to look different depending on where you live. But the more schools you put down, the better of a chance you have of getting into one of those District 15 schools. So do your homework. Last year, a big group of parents became very brave. I'm going to have her than you. They ventured out, and they actually, about 25 parents, that's right, Maggie? About 25 families got together over dinner and applied to the same middle school. And they all got in. So that kind of changes the face of those schools. That's just something I wanted to share. I thought that was kind of brilliant. Yes? You had a question?
Oh, no, my question was about the you called a lot of schools like a fallback. Does that mean that their application process is a little later?
That's a good question. When you go outside the district, those schools don't care about our calendars, and the DOE doesn't care about what their calendars look like, because they're taking care of our families. So, yeah, you're going to have to call them and find out and have a separate calendar, side to side, so you don't miss anything. Even the private schools, they don't, like some parents try to time it, because I know some schools ask for money, like some private schools that charge tuition, or some of these other private schools, and they want the money. They know, some of them know the calendar of the DOE, and they try to get you, and they're like, you got to give us those thousands of dollars because you're not going to have a seat. Oh, but I'm waiting to find out what the response is from District 15. This also adds to our anxiety, right? They know this. They're very smart about that, these private schools. So, yeah, that's something you have to watch. Yes?
So if I put a school as number 2, that school won't see that they're number 2. They'll only see that they're in round 1.
Correct. Yep. Okay. Yes?
So just to confirm, if we send you the request for testing form from Martin Twain, then it will appear on our request.
The only way Mark Twain appears on that application is if you ask me for an RFT, you return it back to me in a timely way so I can get it into the SEM system, and then when the applications come out in November, it'll be on there. So we're going to start that list, right? We're going to start generating it.
Sign up in the back.
If you put your name on there, and again, put your name, your child's name, and the classroom.
I wrote student in class, whichever way is right, just make sure.
Student in class is fine, that's fine. I don't need to know your name, just need to know your name.
Yeah, for Mark Twain, there's 2 talents, right? And I saw in the application they separated each talent. Do we rank them together as one?
No, it's almost like ranking 2 separate schools. Everybody understand that? So Mark Twain will give you 2 choices. Those 2 choices are, it's almost like you're ranking 2 different schools. You could put down, middle school A in District 15. You could put down Mark Twain. Middle school B in District 15, Mark Twain. You could do that. You could do it any way you want. It's blind, so it doesn't matter where you put it. Wherever you put it, everything else moves up. Okay? So if you put District 15, Mark Twain, District 15, Mark Twain is blind, so that other one moves up into 2 in the district process. Yes?
Are the schools in an interview process allowed to ask your child if you put as 1 or 2?
That's a very good question. And it's a very unfair question if they ask the kids that. The question was, if your child is sitting at an interview, can the school ask your child, did you put us down 1 and 2? I had that happen.
Did you put us down in 1 or 2?
I had that happen once, where the kids came back and told us. And we actually, I told Ms. Scott, and she called the superintendent on that. It's an unfair question, because they're not supposed to know, right? I do talk to your kids about that in the interview, on how they can answer that, and then we kick it back to you guys. So think about that question, because it's a very good question. We are not going to tell the kids to lie, but they're your kids. You tell them what they got to do. Okay, yes. Yes. So blind means, if I put Mark Twain down 1 and 2, right? I put down their journalism program and their computer program, let's say. And then I put down New Voices and Math Science in District 15. That means that the District 15 schools, because Mark Twain is a blind choice, is almost invisible to what's happening in our district. So the district doesn't care about Mark Twain. Those 2 schools that you put down 3 and 4 from District 15 are now actually your first and second choice in the district. So it's almost like you have all these schools. It's almost like having 4 choices in the first round, if you do it that way. Yeah. Now, all they see is your kid's name, your kid is interested in you, and then they start wanting to do it. They don't see it. No, from what I understand, Mark Twain calls in everyone that applies. I'll give you the numbers. What that looks like. And it's in this book, if they put it in here. Yeah, they still get called in the kids for interviews, from what I understand. But if you want to be 100% sure, I would definitely call them and ask them that question. But I think blind choice means it doesn't matter where you put them in. Mark Twain had 481 seats for the gifted and talented, and they received 7,520 applications. Okay? That doesn't mean that 7,000 people showed up, because last year, to be honest with you, a lot of people asked me for an RFT and never went for the test. As a matter of fact, I think not many kids went to Mark Twain last year. A lot of PS10 parents thought they were interested, they went to the school, and then they weren't interested. So, think about that before. If you're not sure, if you ask for an RFT and it comes out on your application, do you have to put it down? Do you have to rank it? No, you don't. Okay, so that's how many applications they received, not technically how many kids actually showed up for an interview or an audition.
You've already answered this, but I didn't understand.
It's okay.
In terms of acceptance, then, if you have a blind choice and you did a 15 choice, possibly you would be offered a place in both, but then you said you only get one place.
Right. So think about it this way. All the schools that are on that application, your kid is going to be eligible for in the process, right? So if Mark Twain is there because you asked for an RFT, right? And Mark Twain ranks your kid really high and they take your kid, it's over. Or you're not going to get any other letter. You're going to get one letter out of this whole list. Right, that's what happened. If you put down 51 in Mark Twain and Mark Twain outranks 51, Mark Twain's going to get your kid.
There's a criteria involved that you should feel as though your child is appropriate to fit. That's a lot. I'm getting to see a lot of tension, a little bit of confusion on people's faces, just based on the fact that you hear so many names. But there are only certain schools, when taking your child with you, when you go, you're looking at them critically like, where does my child fit? Where am I best suited? So not every child's a Mark Twain child, basically.
So I'm just saying, if the DOE sees that each of those schools who are blind to each other goes with your kid, how do they pick?
So the way that works is that both, let's suppose that you apply both to MS-88 and Mark Twain, and both agree that they would like to admit your child. If you rank Twain ahead of 88 and they both say yes, your child will receive an offer letter to Twain.
Exactly.
If you rank 88 ahead of Twain and they both say yes, 88 is where your offer letter is.
Now, let's say for some weird reason, 88 and Mark Twain rank them the same. Who gets them? How you listed it, right. On your ranking, correct. Okay, everybody with us? Nobody's lost yet? And if you are, don't worry, I'm going to stick around.
Essentially, if you're not using up a 1 or 2 spot by applying Mark Twain.
No, you're not using anything up, right? It's blind, it's invisible. You can appeal to any school that you're eligible for any reason, even if you didn't put it on your original application. What they're gonna grant it on is what? Seats. Okay? The popular schools are done in the first round. Round one, they're gonna be done. So a lot of times when you appeal to a popular school, you can get it. You can because people move, like I said, right? Somebody might move to Texas, they let go of that seat, or somebody goes to a private school, they let go of that seat, and now there's a seat in that school, they go back to the rankings. We've had appeals granted. Last year we had a few of them. So is it worth doing? Yeah, it is. We pretty much took care of that, right? Only rank schools that are appropriate for your kids. I've seen people, believe it or not, I've gotten applications where people filled out the whole thing, and I called the parent and said, I guess you didn't come to the meeting. Don't do that because you can get one of those schools.
So more than likely, let's say you're just, in a sense, ranking just District 15. Your kid would probably only have 2 interviews, more than like for 1 and 2. If they get pushed into the further rounds, do notes from their interviews go to the next schools? Yeah. Is it just like
it's like crickets?
It's roulette.
After round 1, you get crickets. There's nothing you won't know.
And they don't go and interview for the
second round or the third round. Good question. No. Because think about it. If you get called into the second round for an interview, you know you didn't get into the first round, right? So.
No, I get that, but do those, like, let's say, round 1 and 2's principal or whoever interviewed your kids, are they forwarding their notes from their interviews to 3 and 4, or?
They keep that.
So then it's just really like, where can we fit your kid? Like that 3 and 4 have no idea really like who your child is, other than they're ranked on your
Other than whatever they have
application.
access to in terms of the grades and everything like that, yeah. Yeah. But they know you're interested, and they know that, you know, and those schools that get those names, if they have seats, they, you know, start looking at all those things, and then another way of looking at it kicks into place in terms of how they select those kids in that round.
In our experience, if you don't mind my sharing it, every year what changes about each school is not something we can predict. Sometimes there are interviews, am I correct, Mr. Aramis? Sometimes there are not interviews. Sometimes there are auditions. The next year there may not be an audition.
Depends on the school you're going to.
Whatever you've heard in the past doesn't always hold absolutes. Every year, I feel that they've been known to change up the process so that you don't become ultimately too familiar with the process.
Well, to give an example of that,
so it's neither, you know, it's to be seen.
to give an example of that, I know last year, middle school 51 stopped doing interviews. And so I don't know what they're doing this year. But, you know, definitely you can always call and find out. If we find anything out, we'll definitely text you and things like that, here and here.
I feel like the answer will probably be like, we don't know, but in terms of that academic information that they receive, I thought of this because of your question about the probably interview. Is that academic information inclusive of any minority whatsoever, or just numbers?
Unfortunately, it's just numbers. That's all they're going to have in front of them. Did you guys hear that question?
No.
The question was if the application, when they're selecting the kids in round 2 and 3, are they going to have access to any kind of narrative regarding the child or anything like that? And the answer is no. It's just strictly numbers at that point. Okay. I also know that there is no school is to ask for letters of recommendations. They're no longer accepting those things. So don't bother with letters of recommendations. Middle schools are not going to be taking those in. Yes, sir.
So for the citywide how do they show
Citywide schools are going to be, some of them are going to be on the application. The only one that you have to ask to be on the application is Mark Twain. Yeah. Because citywide, everybody is eligible for that. Well, they're eligible to apply. Whether your child is eligible for that program, that's a whole different thing. Mark Twain is different because Mark Twain is like Maddie said, I want to make that clear. Mark Twain is heavily loaded with work. It's a G&T program. It's gifted and talented. It's a rigorous, very rigorous program. Yes?
Can you tell us where the PS10 kids went last year, who's coming into the school?
Oh God, they went everywhere last year. They went to a lot of different schools last year. They pretty much were spread out.
Can you give us exact numbers?
Exact numbers?
So we actually can talk about that. I think here's the complication with that, which is in terms of trying to discern something from these. When you have a process that is a little bit opaque, and you're told you can't see really what happens, you try and grab information where you can get it, and try and construct some sense from that. What feels a little bit like adding on to a sense of illusion in giving those numbers of where people went is there's no way to know where families made a first choice or a second choice and what the preferences were last year. So, as you said earlier, there was one school that previously, or that did not have many PS10 applicants going to it, and then about 24 families sat down together and applied all at once in the first round, and they all went there. Having those numbers might not be by past reputation that school is sort of famous, and it could look to you like this school's not getting matched and they bumped down to there. That was actually a first choice. We don't know where kids end up, where they ranked them necessarily, so it's not necessarily a likely predictor of what's going to happen to you when you get that information. So I think we do have how they shook out, but it's not necessarily about your odds. It doesn't imply your odds any more than sort of past performance in the stock market tells you how likely an investment is any given year.
So we could say 79%.
79.
Not first choice.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. That means people match their children.
Right.
Our kids did very well last year.
So with those caveats, would you provide that information?
We could provide that information, whether or not that information in any way is a predictor of your experience going forward is an enormous cap, right? And we just want to be careful about inferring too much from those caps.
I'm not a person who's big on data because I know data can tell a lot of different stories. But I will say that in my experience with this, our kids have always done well. They've really done well. So that's what I can say. I know you had, and then we'll come around to it.
I just want to know if, say, I put kids into BSI, will be on the public, the applications or not on the application?
It will be. It's a citywide program.
And then does the Mark Twain one know BSI apply, or they don't know each other, or do they have also ranking within the citywide?
Yeah. They all do ranking. Whatever schools you put down on the application, whatever school you put in there, they will rank the kids.
No, I think she's saying. I mean, it's like whether I put PSI on top of Mark Twain or Mark Twain on top of PSI, does that have any impact on her?
Yes. Where you put your first and second choice, yes. How you rank the schools always has an impact on what you're doing. Yes.
Even the citywide.
Even the citywide. Yes. Because like I said, if it's a tie type of thing with the principals, right? Like if two schools rank their kid as high as they can, who's going to get the kid? The kid at the school that you put down number one.
But the only citywide you can rank is
No, citywide means anybody can rank them. It's citywide. Mark Twain is the only G&T school, the true G&T school, and that's why they do the request for testing form.
So say ICE?
ICE is a Manhattan school, and I think ICE may be a school-based application school, which means you have to call them to find out what their process is. Huh? Yeah. ICE? I'm trying to remember, because I know Nest wasn't. Some of them are not. If it says school-based option on the bottom of the page, again, I'm going to refer to that for a minute. If it has this little box on the bottom, it's not going to be on the application. It's not going to be on the District 15 application. You have to call that school. Okay? Right. They do a separate application process.
And if it's
right, that's another G&T school, and they have their own application process.
And if it is a school-based application, so it's like done completely separately, then you actually potentially could get two offers, right?
Yes.
You could get an offer from one of those school-based application places, and
absolutely.
Okay.
So everybody got that? So if I put down Nest, if I go to Nest and I call Nest and say, hey, I need an application for your school, and my kid is eligible, because Nest again is like Mark Twain's, a G&T school in Manhattan, right? And they accept my child. Right? And let's say a school in District 15 accepts my child, you could get 2 letters. And we said before, let go of one of those because another kid may be waiting for that.
And around the same time?
Pretty much.
Things happen at the same
pretty
time?
Pretty much at the same time.
Okay.
Yep.
May I just, I'm sorry, I know I keep interjecting, but I want to straighten something else so you feel a little more clear. So you talked about Brooklyn School of Inquiry, you talked about Mark Twain, and it seems that, what am I going to do now? The answer to that is only one thing. When you visit, you're actually visiting 2 extremely different schools. And you'll notice that. One school may pop out as that first choice, or may suddenly drop down the list. So before you can say, wow, what am I going to do now? Really, you can't skip the step of visiting because it's your child's, home away from home for the next however many years. You've got to step into the school. You'll know so much more when you do.
So I'm going to go to you and then to you. I just want to say one thing is that the meeting today was until 10 o'clock. I can stay as long as you want with questions and answers. I'm also available in my office. You don't need an appointment. But the best day for me is Friday because I try not to put a lot of my counseling sessions on Friday so that I can give it to you guys. So if you want to come in the morning with a smile, say hello in the morning, and we can talk about anything, right? Strategy, whatever you want to do. Behind closed doors, we'll talk about your kid. Okay, we'll go here, in the back. Go.
So our applications are due back on December 1. I just wanted, can you tell me what physically happens to the application? So do I come to you?
So if you come in late, in the stalls. No. What do you got?
Well, I mean, do I hand the paper out?
No, send it to the teacher. The teacher's collecting them, and they will have a checklist that I give them as to who's brought them in, and who hasn't. It doesn't matter if you bring it in before her. It doesn't matter. As long as they're all in by December 1st.
Because we're supposed to give them to the child's teacher.
Give it to the teacher.
And then what happens to it?
And then the teacher says, Mr. Ramos, here they go. Everybody turn it in.
And then what do you do with it? Do you type in?
Great question. So what happens is, no, that's a great, you should know what happens. So this is what happens. The teacher collects all the applications. Don't bring me any applications because my office is so busy that I just don't want to lose anything. The teachers get it, they stack it, they have a pre-populated list that I give them, and they do the check off, and they go after the people who haven't given them in. So that we get it all in a timely fashion. It doesn't matter if you give it to me the day that I gave you the application or on December 31st. That does not matter. Just get them in by December 31st. Because I have a December 1st. December 1st. I'm thinking of my wife. That's her birthday, December 1st. Okay. So you give the application in by December 1st. I get all the applications. Now my work begins. I do everything electronically on the SEMS system. So what I do is I take your child's application and whatever you put down as a choice, I put that into the system. Okay? When I put it into the system and I submit it, it locks in. And then I send home a receipt so you know what I did on the computer. And if I make a mistake, I can fix it. Just call me. Rare, but it happens.
Okay. That was it.
Okay?
That was it.
Cool.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Yes. When I think back to my own experience of touring colleges, it was a very random experience, and my impression of any given might have depended on the weather of the given day, whoever I happened to meet. So I'm just wondering if you have any advice for how to make the best of the school tours, what might be appropriate questions to ask, and what to look for in such a short window.
So the question was about advice on tours and how to think about that experience with your kid, if your kid is coming along as well. After we get through the factual parts of the process, in this presentation, we're going to go on thinking about the experience of managing the process and then some of what to look for and how to think about those things. So that'll come up as we are close to the
Yeah. One of the suggestions I'm going to give right off the bat, is that you should make a list of questions that you want to ask a principal about their school. Because I'm gonna when we do the interviewing thing, I want our kids to know about the schools that they're applying to. We don't want a kid sitting there and say, so why do you want to come to MSA? I don't know. And I role play that for them. I'll sit down on the chair slouching. I don't know, my cousin comes here. And the kids laugh. But I do it as an example. Then I let the kids take my interview apart. And then we do a take two. And then I do a better interview. Not a perfect one, because there's no such thing. And I start asking them, what did I do wrong? What did I do right? And the kids start looking into that. In terms of the tours, you're not under that kind of a microscope. But you just want to have a list of questions that you ask the same questions to every single school and see how they answer it. Visit the school at 3 o'clock. Visit the school before school. See what's going on. What are the kids doing in the streets, right? Because there's a lot of interaction going on. So that's always a good thing to do. And it gives you kind of a perspective. Go into insideschools.org. Some of these parents have already done it. They can give you some advice on some of that stuff as well. Yeah? Yes.
If you make it to the middle school that PS10 families going together for investment?
Somebody just said it. Not a secret. Okay. So this is exactly what I just said. If you see any errors on the receipt, after I give you the receipt, please just call me. That's something that can easily be fixed, and I can print you a new receipt and send it home. Okay?
Mr. Ron?
Yes.
Are you going to have any of the schools come and talk to us, please?
I know that they're going to have the middle school fair.
Yeah.
Make sure you make that, because all the District 15 schools are going to be inside middle school 88.
But any aren't coming here?
I know last year the supervisors of parent coordinators did like a little forum, but not all the schools showed up. I think the fair is a whole lot better because all the schools are there at the same time. And that list of questions, if you have that list of questions with you, you can ask. When you go on the tour, you can see.
I will tell you, we did a forum, I ran a forum here, and some schools did come, some did not, sometimes they'd say they'd come, and then they wouldn't. I think people got something, but the way this is timed this year, here's a meeting now, and then the next thing is your fair, and then Mr. Ramos holds an evening meeting, and you can, you don't need to come to that since you've come to this, but if you need to hear the information again, you can. So there's so much, you get inundated. We don't want to oversaturate you and make you feel more emergent than necessary. It's a process, and take it every day. Do a little something towards these ends every day.
So January and February, we have the interviews, the testing, and all this stuff. Some of the stuff we covered. I want to go down to that third bullet where it says some of the middle schools might invite the PS10 kids on a given day. So I want to share an experience with you that I share every year, not to frighten you, not to get you full of more anxiety, but knowledge is power, and I share this with the kids when I do the interviewing class. One year, how many of you remember Miss Watson? Long time ago, right? So Miss Watson was a 5th grade teacher one year, and PS10 kids were invited to an interview. And the kids were in the waiting room, and they were interacting with one another. And a lot of them were misbehaving and acting out. So a lady went up to them and said, guys, can you please keep it down? They made remarks. She walked away. She came back again. They were still fooling around, and she said it again. Make a long story short, that was the assistant principal. She got their names, and a lot of them did very poorly in the interview. They didn't make it to that school. Miss Watson was furious. So was I. So that happened a long time ago. Ever since that happened, we share that experience with everybody so that you talk to your kids. Make sure when you go to the interview, take a book. Some schools may not mind if you have electronics. Some of them may. To just find out what the policy is in every school. Because as the mayor said, it's up to the schools to make those policies. Those things are allowed in the school at certain times, and at certain times they're not. So find out. If it's a Nook that they're reading a book on Nook, find out. Can you read the book on Nook? Just to make sure that you give your kid every single opportunity. Yes? That's a great question. That's a great question. Do they keep tabs on who goes to the open houses and things like that? I'm not sure. I've heard yes, I've heard no. I never got a straight answer. I know that our superintendent is watching some of this stuff because she wants to get rid of all these shenanigans that exist from the middle schools. So I'm not so sure how important that is, and I don't want to say that it's not. I'm going to side on yes, it's important. I'm going to side on that. If for some reason you can't make it to a tour, maybe having your child piggyback with another parent here, or having a babysitter or someone take them to the tour and bring them back, that might be another option.
We need your permission if you're in school that day for another person to pick your child up that day.
Yes, make sure that their names are on the blue card, or that you give a letter of consent that they can take them to this trip. Yes.
Does it make sense to bring the kids to the middle school fair, or just to the...
Yeah, the kids are invited, sure. You know what's nice about the fair is also that you have kids there at the table, so your kids can actually interview them.
Okay.
Say, do you really like the school?
Oh, okay. Okay, so
I used to go to the tours all the time,
yeah.
And I used to talk to the kids. I didn't want to talk to the principal. I wanted to talk to the kids.
So there'll be kids there.
So yeah, and some of the schools are very good. Some of the schools actually have the kids giving the tour, which is pretty cool.
But at the fair, the kids, some kids might be there too.
Some schools might bring the kids, yeah. Some of them might be like a guidance counselor or a representative, or yes. If you have a tour to go to at 9 o'clock, go to the tour. Just make sure you bring back that paper. They will not be marked absent or anything. If you want to give the teachers a heads up, that's always nice so that they know, all right, he's going to miss the morning, work, and they can always try to make it up or something like that.
If a tour is at 11 a.m., please come into school and have your child be
signed out, yeah.
Yeah, sign in, please, and then sign your child out. So child attendance will be taken, and the coach will come in and speak to them about them.
They're not looking at fifth grade report card. Thank God, because there's not much of a window. They're looking at fourth grade. A complete final fourth grade report card. Final fourth grade. Not supposed to, according from what I heard from the superintendent. So, I don't know. They're not supposed to be looking. No. And I'm glad and I'm happy about that because for years they've done that. And I'm like, well, in a way it's good because it gives the kid who had a poor report card in fourth grade an opportunity, but at the same time, that window from September to November, that first report, look how many days we had off today. This month. Look how many days we had off. What is it, like 32 school days from now to the first report card?
The first semester ends on the 32nd day of school. And that is not as much information that we've gathered about students in the past. What we definitely know is that there are some efforts this year. There's an acknowledgement that different schools have had different report card traditions in the past. And the effort now is to now that we have one standardized elementary school transcript system across our city, we're going to rely on that. So different schools, the narrative that some schools have used, neither privilege nor disadvantage any child, depending on how that is done. It is just going to be the transcript information, such as attendance, and the actual grades given that are available, and that will be much more easy.
So did they change that this year?
That is based on going forward, and our superintendent has communicated to principals that there will not be requests for any other report card made by middle schools individually this year, in order to guarantee more evenness going forward.
It's just complicated for the middle schools to release their superintendent to release their admissions criteria after it can no longer be.
And yet.
Agreed.
And yet.
So,
but they don't want you to become too familiar. So things you've read from last year on other sites may not be correct.
So, and let me just acknowledge that we will soon acknowledge some of the tensions that exist in this process and the ways that they seem quirky and irregular, and just put them all out of order. Because I think as you're thinking about your child, you're also thinking about the process, and that can feel complicated in a process that seems ever-changing and shifting information, and where you don't have entirely all that access. So if we can hold on to that stuff until the end, we'll get through this last bit of the factual parts, and then we'll get to it.
So this is the next thing we're going to talk about is what's needed in the interview. Every school does their interview process as or their auditions or their testing different. Some of them ask the kids to write essays. Some of them, if it's a performing arts school, if your kid likes to dance, they're going to ask them to do a simple routine of dance. They do not have to be professional dancers. Don't worry about that. Or actors or actresses. It's just that they have the interest in the theme of the school. Okay, not that they're professionals at it already. These are kids. These are fifth graders going into sixth grade. If they ask for an assignment, a piece of writing that's really, really good, and you don't have something at home, and you have to ask your teacher for it, please do it in a timely fashion. That teacher can get it to you on time. Yeah. Well, I would definitely call the schools that you're interested in and ask the parent coordinator or the guidance counselor. Listen, what are you guys expecting in your interview? What should I be bringing? It may be listed here, may not be listed here. So I would actually just pick up the phone and ask. Another thing, if you have to contact me for whatever reason, the fastest way to do it is through the telephone. I know a lot of you have computers and you're at work and you're in front of a computer. I'm not in front of my computer all day long. I serve children. I serve 60 kids, mandated kids that I have to see every week for counseling. I have other responsibilities. So sometimes my computer right now upstairs is not on. So sometimes I walk through the door and there's an emergency. If you have to contact me, my phone lights up like the bat phone. So I know I have a message. My computer does not. So if I get carried away by the day, by the activities of the day, I may not get to your email. So I respond to phone calls faster than email. So if it's something that has something to do with timing, call me on the phone. If I don't get back to you for some reason, then call the office and have them and give them the message. Please call me as soon as possible. If you have something, a pressing issue that needs, immediate attention. Okay? Any questions about that interview? Yes.
And for graded assignments, a lot of assignments are submitted online and there's never like a paper with a grade written on it by a teacher.
We don't know. The question had to do with graded assignments. It is not clear that schools will be allowed to do that again this year. That is a past practice, and if it arises, if there are any potential complications with it, we'll address them as they come up.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it may be that we no for any sort of assessment they have of kids beyond their transcript records, have to handle that in their own interview and audition process, and not by relying on elementary schools. We'll be finding that out shortly.
And again, we don't even know for certain if there will be interviews. We don't know that yet. This can be done much more streamlined than you would imagine. It's about visitation for you now. Go visit everywhere.
Okay. Yes.
I'm so sorry, it's a really quick question, and I'm sorry this is redundant.
My answer is going to be long. Okay.
Just to go backwards a little bit, in terms of the application process, all the schools that are listed on your application in terms of preference, you're only getting one offer from those schools, is that correct?
You're going to have one offer letter from any school that's on the application.
On the application?
Anything outside of the application, you might get a second letter from.
But that, in terms of schools that are listed, that are repopulated?
One offer letter. Yep. Yep. Okay, this is just obviously a disclaimer. No middle school can use test scores as the sole reason for admitting a kid. This has always been in effect, and it was made very clear last year to middle schools that they cannot use the test scores as the sole criteria for a child to enter a school. They have to have multiple criteria, and they are listed in the book. Yes.
I was going to ask, I kept referring as popular, using the term popular school.
Very careful what I say.
Yeah, but can you share which are the popular schools?
It's in here. Look at the amount of seats they have and how many people apply. Very simple. And we talked about Mark Twain, 400 somewhat seats, 7,000 people applied. Not really that they had an interest in that school, then maybe that's not a good example, but a school like New Voices, let's say, has 183 seats. They received, I think, 1,500 applications, something like that. That tells you what, but a lot of the schools are different. Yes, insideschools.org. Insideschool.org. Again, it's a parent, kind of like a review of what those schools are like. You know, you're going to go see them. This is part of your research. This is what you're going to look. But just because a school is popular doesn't mean it's good for your kid, right? For example, I mentioned New Voices. That's a performing arts school. If your kid is an athlete, guess what? There's no sports program there. So think about those things, right? Anything else?
So in terms of the selection process, they only look at the 4th grade.
The final 4th grade report card.
They do not go back at all to the 3rd and the 2nd. They have. So I guess you need to maybe in the future, let the other people know that it's not
I
the
did.
5th grade.
I did speak curriculum night last year. I went to the 4th grade and I had 2 meetings with 4th grades. We send notices home through the yellow contact folder. So make sure you empty that out and read it carefully. I know sometimes we get things that are redundant and we throw things out, but really take a look at it because you don't want to miss out on anything. Yes?
Sorry, one more question about IEPs. So, say you're expecting your kids' services to change by fall middle school. Like, when do they see what the services are?
Pretty much right away. I mean, they have access to it. If they're not sure, they might call me and say, we weren't sure about this IEP. It looks like it's outdated. I would say, well, it's in the process of doing so.
And one of the things now, just as transcripts are now sort of standardized citywide, IEPs also are in one repository now, with everything from recommended services to your signature, or to a family's signature. They're uploaded online. As soon as a student is enrolled in a school, that IEP and all prior IEPs historically are accessible to that school.
All records
so they would
are
instantaneously be able to see what's been recommended and anything.
So, like, say you have a service that they might not necessarily offer in middle school.
Schools are required to offer whatever services are on the IEP.
Now, if it's a placement, of course, CSE gets involved. I mean, not CSE. Special education gets involved with that. They work hand in hand with the Office of Student Placement and Enrollment. So, and they call us and they ask us, what does the kid need or what are we doing? So make sure you keep in mind the schools that you're applying to and your child's needs. Up here are just the, Up here I have just things that might be considered for admissions. Some schools, again, 4th grade report card, test scores, attendance, of course, 4th grade, very important. We talked about that last year, curriculum night. Classroom behavior that's already comes from the STARS report card that the teachers put in. And of course, I put that one on the bottom for the reason that I gave you before when they actually have responsibilities in the classroom. Okay, so that's just a reminder. Not necessarily all the schools watching the kids while they're waiting in the waiting room, but if something happens, you know, just want to make sure you tell your child, read the book. You're always safe with a book. Yes?
So on the day of the interview, are the parents there? I mean, who's this
You take the child there. Some schools, that's a good question. Some schools might do a drop-off type of thing, and then you can leave. I know I think North Twain doesn't allow the parents inside their school. You drop the kid off and you leave, and you pick them up at a certain time. Some schools have a waiting area where you can just hang out. If you have, you know, if you come in, you could, you know, hang out and wait for the youngster. They all do it differently. That part of it.
And Mark Twain's on Coney Island, and that may be good for you, or that may be terrible for you. So logistics here are part of the same criteria as everything else. What's going to make it worthwhile? Eventually a child will travel on their own or with friends. So we've got a lot of things to cross-reference here.
Yeah, keep that in mind because traveling is important. I mean, you know, sometimes if a kid goes to school in Dean Street over there at Math Science 447, that could be a trek for some people depending on where you live, right? Think of 2 routes on the bus in case one route gets shut down. Things like that you have to think about. That's not written in the book, but those are experiences that we share with you. Yes?
As far as attendance, what are the numbers that they input?
That's a great question. I know that one particular school, 51, came up with a number last year. The only thing I can tell you, because I don't know if they're going to change that this year, because I know the superintendent had conversations with these principals about what happened last year or the year before that to make this better for everybody. According to the Department of Education, because I am the attendance chairperson in this building, a child must be in school at least 90% of the time, always. So your children from the first day of school to now, on their attendance record, should say that they're in school 90% of the time. Okay? That could look different at any part of the year. In June, 90%, you could be absent about 17 days. I wouldn't suggest that because some people could fail, but 90% is 90%. The question is, should I be worried about 10 days? I don't know what principals are doing and how they're selecting and how much impact that has. I do know that if I'm looking at 2 kids in my final seat, let's say, I got 1 seat left, I'm looking at 2 kids, everything looks identical except the attendance. 1 kid has 10 absences, 1 kid has 1. Will that tip the scale? I don't know what goes on behind closed doors.
I think we can't actually, without being able to go back in time to a previous year, we have to control what there's enough to be anxious about in the process without sort of, that one's out of our control. And in the past, I don't know what will be, but in the past there has been attendance reported for 5th grade on these forms as well as 4th. We don't know that that will be the case this year. But one thing that is more in control now with the family is the punctuality and attendance for the start of 5th grade. If you have the opportunity to control that and work on that, that's something that may appear again in the future, so it's worth keeping in mind to the rest of your
And just to make a note, I'm making a side note away from this process. I mean, attendance is always important, obviously, for many different reasons. And when we look at attendance in the attendance committee, we do find that other issues exist, and we help families because of those things. But, you know, attendance is always something that triggers alarms in our heads when we have to help people. Yes?
What's the weight between absences versus instances?
I don't know. That could look different to principals behind closed doors. I don't know what they're thinking.
Debbie's telling us
That's a hard thing to answer because it has nothing to do with the process. It's a behind the scenes.
or has 2 flus, and you have excused absences in this week and excused in this week, it's understood what has occurred. But if a kid's 3 late, a week passes 3 more late, and there's a pattern that they may not wish to entertain any further.
So
and
if,
that's the late is a big deal. I think.
so here's the thing with attendance. If your child, let's say, broke their arm last year, they were out for 10 days, 15 days, we have documentation of that. You submitted a letter from the doctor, right? Because when your child is sick or goes to the doctor, you guys get a doctor's note. Or if the child is sick and you didn't go to the doctor and kept them home, at least I hope that you wrote a letter to the teacher letting them know why they're being out and can they make up the work. That goes on to the system as extenuating circumstances. So that kind of like, of course, those numbers don't disappear because you have a doctor's note. You're legalizing the absence with a note. That means that this child didn't come to school for legal reasons. Not that I went to Disney because we wanted to go to Disney in the middle of whatever. Okay? That's a very big difference. between an illegal absence and a legal. And I'm using that term because that's actually what it is. There are some families that get in trouble with some of these absences. So when they're looking at it for middle school purposes, if I put that on the computer and I have evidence that it was an extenuating circumstances, it's going to be marked as an extenuating circumstances, and you don't have to worry about those numbers. Okay? Yes? No, not at all. Okay.
With the test score, are they looking at the numbers, like if they got like a 1, 2, 3, 4? Are they looking at the number, like the breakdown?
My past experience, the only school who was really fixated on the test scores was 51. That's all I can say. The other schools, I have one particular principal, and I can't mention the person's name, but I know a particular principal that says, I don't care if your kid is a level 4 kid, right? If the behavior is poor, don't want him. If I have a level 2 kid who behaves well, I could turn that kid into a 3. I can't do anything with the level 4 kid. And that person will tell you this on the tour. Straight shooter will say it. So does level 4 count? Yes, it counts. But behavior sometimes has more weight than that. Yes?
I think what she's saying, do they see 3 or 4, or do they see 3 point whatever?
Whatever you got, did you receive your scores? 4th grade? Whatever you had there, I'm not sure what it is, but whatever was printed on your report, that's what they see.
They give you the whole number, and then they also give you the
rating.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
It has in the past been reported as a scale score, like 3-digit score, and certainly middle schools would be aware if it's reported again of how the scales break down into levels.
You will see what they see because it'll be printed on the application in the passage.
Does everyone know there's a new system in place that is not Paris? New York City schools account, should be in your last report card. If not, please call me and I'll set. But please do look in that last report card. All your information should be there. So you'll be able to, if you haven't seen the scores, that's how you look.
Okay. We're going to run a little bit quicker. Let's hold the questions for the end so we can get through this presentation. These are some of the things that will take place during the interviews. Some will, some won't. Some principals may change what they're doing during those interviews. They don't necessarily tell us. Okay. I know in the past, Mark Twain used to give out a little skit, a drama skit. If a kid applied to drama, they would give a little skit, and they would, rehearse the skit and then go and perform it. They do things like that. It's not going to be a big surprise, and I'm going to kill you if you're not a professional, whatever. Okay. The audition is from Mark Twain. Again, it's only for students who submit an RFT form, or else it will not appear on your class application. If somebody has that list, just make sure I get it before you leave. This is about the offer letters. We touched on that. By the way, this is very important. When your children get the offer letters, very important, folks, very important. The offer letters, I pick them up at the Department of Education, and I bring them right up to the classroom and do not hold on to them. The teachers will give them out at the end of the day. The teachers who have been in the 5th grade for many years already understand. What we tell the children is do not open this until you see the eyeballs of your parents, preferably at home. Why? Because if that offer letter says you have been accepted to a school that you didn't put on your application and you're sad, you don't want to have that experience in front of your friends. Okay? That is the worst thing a kid can go through. Do it in the privacy of your home, with your family, with your loved ones, and then there's a problem, call Mr. Ramos, and we do an appeals. Right? We want to spare them that embarrassment. I give them the letters because your boys and girls are now going into middle school. They need to be responsible with this kind of stuff. In 3 years, 3.5 years, 4 years from now, whatever it is, they're going to be doing this process again for high school. So this is their first experience. Let them experience it. Okay? But also be on the same page with us. Don't open that letter till you give it to me. We'll open it together. That's very important. Okay? All right. And then we'll take it from there what we have. When you get the letter, when you get the offer letter, if you are happy or you are content with the school that you were offered, you have to do nothing. You don't do anything. You will automatically be registered to that school. Unless you're not happy and you want to do an appeals, or if you're going to go to a different school again, you give me a letter saying that they've been registered at a different school. Okay? By the way, those fourth, if you were thinking about the fourth grade report card, that's going to be pre-printed. For the appeals process, you can appeal again for any reason to any school. They usually give you two choices. If that changes, you'll see the change on the application. You usually can get a choice 1 and 2 for the appeals. You can put down up to 2 choices. Okay? Again, appeals are granted based only on availability of seats on the schools that you're asking for. All right, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Felber.
So, thank you all, by the way, for giving us a lot of time here this morning about this process. I'm going to just talk for about 12 minutes after all that factual information about some of the emotional side of the process, because it is a very emotional process for you as individual families, for families all together, and of course for kids as well. And managing that is a lot. So I'm going to try and get you onto the rest of your day in about 12 minutes from now, and we'll certainly stay behind for our individual questions as well. But before I sort of talk about thinking about the emotional side of this process, there are definitely a lot of anxieties and tensions to acknowledge, and I just wanted to name some of them because they're very much with us. The first is that we've talked about a process and tried to make it sound orderly, but there are no guarantees, and you know that that part is true. That creates its own tensions. The interviews, the individual auditions, the sort of school-based tests and experiments and anything that might happen, they happen outside of your view. And so you're thinking about your child going in, and you hope for the best, but you don't necessarily have that automatic, instantaneous sense of things going well. The fact that there are unpredictable elements in the application process year after year after year is not as comforting either. Because there are some ups and downs in it, and every time that we say, we'll have to find out about that and share you, it makes it sound undecided, and sometimes you're getting information that feels like it's after the fact. That can be unsettling. Finally, the fact that not all decision-making criteria that schools use are public, that we can't tell you if there is an automatic number of absences or latenesses, that why they rank one child ahead of another. All that information is a little bit unseen. That's another challenge. And more globally, beyond just your own experience of it, there are some wider things too. A lot of people have expressed concerns, not necessarily for how it will play out for their kid, but for a sense of all kids and whether or not there's equity in the process. And even if you get a result that feels satisfying for yourself and for your family, it doesn't always feel balanced or fair for other people's kids. There's a lot of concern out there that developmentally, this is graduate school level pressure on kids who are not prepared to compete in that way. That is and the idea of sort of ranking and sorting 10-year-olds, when they haven't done all that much in the world yet to be ranked and sorted, does not feel like a natural developmental fit for your kid. And finally, any process that is going to depend on 5th graders who can't necessarily be relied upon to remember their jacket, or flush a toilet, or what their homework was, or any number of other things that you nag about constantly, that's going to feel like a very unreliable process. Your sense of a good outcome depends on a kid in an interview whom you know can, in any 5-minute span, be the smartest or silliest person you know. Right? All those things feel really hard to manage. So, having acknowledged all those things, here's the hard part. The best way to get what feels like a satisfactory outcome for your kid is to have your kid feeling comfortable. And so whatever your own feelings are about this process, we kind of have to control those as adults to position kids to be at their most comfortable. And no matter how we feel about the outcome or about the process, to have them feeling like it worked out okay for them. So that's a lot to suspend emotionally. And fifth graders, it's worth pointing out, have their own strong emotions. And I want to sort of call attention to that too. We have to remember a little bit that they don't come at this with years of applying to school and applying on job interviews and everything else. They are experiencing sometimes what, if we make it feel like high-stakes pressure, this would be one of their first opportunities to experience it. So managing that pressure for them and not whatever internal pressure you feel, transmitting it down to them, we can have, this is one thing to think about. And also, this is really true. Your discussion of how you're going to pick schools could be the first conversation you have with an adolescent who is about to take over your child's body and brain. If you've had older kids who have gone, and are now teenagers, a lot of people feel like the first time they met that teenager was in the middle of fifth grade. If you've ever actually walked into a fifth grade classroom here, probably around May, it suddenly smells like teenagers. Literally. And with that comes a lot of the emotional volatility that comes through with those guys. It's really important to remember this. These guys, even if you have a logical reason for doing things your way, your kids potentially are making a teenager's emotional memory of you making a big decision alongside them. And as difficult as this may be, high school decisions and that process are 3 years away. So, your kid can walk out of this one feeling pretty comfortable about deciding, making big choices with you, or be someone whose memory of it, right or wrong, is you always do that when we're picking schools. When have we picked schools in the past, right? I made some picks for you when you were 10, I know. And you always do. And now you set things up for the other decisions, right or wrong, anything else. What sometimes fifth graders remember is the feeling more than the actuality of what happened. So tread carefully. So to do that, as I said, have worked, I'm new to this school, but definitely not new to being an assistant principal, and have been with families in a bunch of other districts citywide. And over the years, because having people come to the end feeling pretty good about the process, whether or not they got their first choice, always feels like something that deserves an exit interview. And I've talked to a lot of families about how it went for them, and what they did, and what made it feel like it worked well. And I've accumulated some of their wisdom here to sort of pass along. So the first is to first be clear with yourself, and then with your child, about how much influence your kid has on these decisions. Kids will pick schools based on the fact that, I really like the cafeteria. And that may not be something you're comfortable giving over. And kids get a feeling, and being fifth graders, they may not share all the sources of those feelings, but if it is just sort of they're fixated on the cafeteria and you don't feel like that's a good fit, it is really hard to say that, you get, half the decision making, and then be like, that was before I didn't trust your decision. So, because that will be remembered that you don't trust them, and remember, you are borrowing against your ability to influence high school, college, and beyond, right here, emotionally. So, decide first among all the adults who have a stake what you're actually giving over to your child, and be really clear with your child. And don't give away more than you're prepared to give away early on, because that's what kids, fifth graders, tend to remember, is broken promises, not wise adult decisions. Second, consider a tour of balancing out what's a daytime tour and an evening open house. There's a sense out there that tours during the daytime are very valuable things. People like click refresh to sign up as though it's trying to get very special concert tickets. And sometimes you don't necessarily get more information. You just see the kids sitting in classroom. But sometimes looking around a room and really getting a sense of what kids are working on, sometimes you can do that just as easily or even more easily in a less crowded classroom. In the evening, you can get a lot of information. It also, I think for kids sometimes, some of them who go on many daytime tours, sort of can have a sense of fatigue or fragmentation about what they're missing while they're away. So you got to work with your kid to figure out the exact number that feels right. And daytime tours don't necessarily give you a better view in all cases than you might have at night. So you want to balance that. Think about this one really clearly. The best time to talk about everybody's decisions as adults is not necessarily when your kids are nearby. There's a lot of casual talk on the playground. And kids, they're fifth graders, they're proto-adolescents. They are taking their cues oftentimes from what their friends like. So if they know what their friends like, they may go with that against your wishes. Or just having it in the air and all the decisions and all the opinions. Even if you're being careful about what you say in front of your kids, there's no guarantee that other families know how you want to talk about it. So if someone wants to talk about, like, why don't we all pick this one for our first choice, it's a really good discussion to have, but not necessarily always in front of your kid, because the more talk there is about it, sometimes that can amp kids up as well. So just think about when and how and where you want to have those discussions. This is really true. There are so many legitimate concerns about the process. But even well-founded gripes can give kids a suggestion that this is a stressful or unfair process. And you don't want to compile a child's stress just because it is stressful to the adults. So speaking calmly about it, and then taking the most stressful part, sometimes sharing it with other people who aren't your kid, can reserve some of your kid's emotion and stamina for a longer process without taking too much away from the process of being in fifth grade while you're in fifth grade. This seems to jump out of order. But I would add, just continuing that, definitely work with your guidance counselor, Mr. Ramos, who will lead you well to things. And I'm sorry for this animation getting out of order, but I just want to add this part, that schools with still developing reputations may be a really good fit. And I'll say it like this. A few of you heard me the other night mention the fact that between the fall of 2010 and the fall of 2014, PS10 grew faster than 97% of the elementary schools in New York City. This year, I'm pretty sure, once we have the official tally of schools at the end of October, what it will mean is that if your kids were here from kindergarten through fifth grade, they were part of the fastest growing school of any of the 700 elementary schools in New York City. When you got here, PS10 was not a school, perhaps, with the same reputation it has today. But if your kid had a good experience, that's what matters. It wasn't the prestige when you started. It was the experience your kid had. So going based only on what's popular and not on your gut feeling of a school sometimes can lead you astray. Go with where a school is going and what it looks like it is more than what it has been in the past. And with that, definitely consider some options beyond the choice process. It is just more backup and more information that gives you a wider sense of things. And lastly, now in order, definitely work with Mr. Ramos to find a good fit or address individual things, particularly on those Friday mornings that he set aside to do that with families if he can. So, last thing, this is not from families, but this is just my last piece about how we actually can set kids up in thinking about them. I have a bunch of fake middle schools down the left side, and what I'm trying to make the point about here is that the way that we get them to think about schools ultimately can affect their contentment and satisfaction as they enter a school at a very emotionally delicate time of their lives. Right? Their future satisfaction sort of depends on whether or not they're set up to feel satisfied about their choices. And those choices, to some extent, are beyond your control, so you really want to manage this part carefully. So, if the opinion is that the first middle school is the best choice, that middle school, after you go see it, is good, but clearly not the best. This one is okay, but only okay. That one is disappointing, because you heard good things, and it was really disappointing. And the last one, don't even ask, it was awful. Right? The way that you rank them is going to follow those feelings. It's going to be pretty obvious. You know, which is number one, which is number two, which is number three, which is number four. And you're probably not even going to rank the last. Okay? That becomes a challenge if your kid doesn't get the one that is defined as best. Because you can only go, regardless of how you feel and what you think is best, your kid is cued in on the day that that offer letter comes to feel that less than the best is now waiting for him or her, and that kid's got to make an adjustment. So as you talk about all schools through the process, after visiting them, either during a daytime tour or an evening open house or a weekend open house, here's another way to do that. Change opinion to what we noticed. Just think about shifting it slightly, even if secretly you're harboring an opinion, because here's what that says to your kid. Here's what we noticed. We can think of things like really interesting projects in the corridors, seventh graders asking each other questions during math. We noticed in another one that there's a passionate principal and many opportunities to be on teams. We noticed in a third one that there's a peer mediator program for all students, if that's appealing, and some interesting overnight trips for every grade. There's new science labs in the next one, and energetic teachers, and finally a robotics club with after-school partnerships with museums. How you rank those is not so clear. And what you're talking about now is not matching 1, 2, 3, 4 to best, not as good, even worse, even worse, even worse, but just what feels like a fit. And you've got some ways of talking about it that also help you get a little more flexibility and a little more permission to ride along your opinion secretly with your child, with your very emotional fifth grader. And if your child does not get that first or second choice, you can say, oh look, you got the one with the robotics club. You can go bring your appeal separately. But on day one, you've got something to say that doesn't sound like this is a disappointment, that signals your child to go back to school and express unhappiness the next day, or when you arrive in sixth grade to feel lesser than. Okay? So, finally, working together in the months ahead. This first bullet I'm about to add assumes something that has been true in the past, and I don't know if it will be true again. But there's one thing, if, as in the past, if it does carry over onto applications, is in your control. That is your child's attendance and punctuality. That is much more a part of decisions, and that's the one number that's most in families' ability to do something about. Be very careful taking long weekends this time away. Be to school on time. Do all those things that if fifth grade attendance is to count. If it is, and I don't know that it is better to err on the side of being here every day on time, because it gives your kid one more little thing. Next, watch for updates that we send in your child's backpack, and sign up if you have not for our regular updates that come electronically. We're going to keep sending these out, particularly as we get new information as they change. If you have not signed up for one of our email or text updates, please let me know. I will work with you and sign you up right as we're breaking up here.
Can you confirm the bottom number?
The bottom number is really hard to read.
That's a B, right?
It's a B. Yeah.
It's a B as in boy. It is a B, right?
Yeah.
I did it both ways myself. It's a B or a 6, and unfortunately. Yes, it is a B. It is a B as in boy.
So what are you primarily going to use that text program for? To tell us that things are coming home to school, or to say, like, so-and-so just opened up a tour, sign up.
I think the latter, or if we get information like 5th grade attendance won't be, like when we have factual confirmation about things, that's the quickest way to do that. Or if any number of process things or watch out for, we're just going to keep updates because unfortunately the process does appear to have some little blips along the way, and it's just a way of keeping people informed.
An example also is sometimes schools might change something, like last year, we found out that middle school 51 was not doing interviews. That's the first time they've ever done that. We found out towards the end of that process, and it was hard to get that out to families in a timely fashion. So with text, having text is a great way to just say, hey, listen, this changed. I want to make you aware. Or if something I said in the meeting changes, we could always shoot it out to you guys, and you guys will have the most current updated.
Right. Also, Maddie established before and is still maintaining a Twitter feed about the middle school
I'm
process.
going to send you that address. If you are on Twitter, it's at PS10 Midschool Info. And I'm going to shoot out things as I get them.
Okay. One way that we can be accurate is because we, unfortunately, sometimes middle schools communicate information to families without necessarily checking off that every school has them. So, if you do hear of information from a middle school or a rumor about what's going on, please pass it to us. We will work with the school to confirm it, and as soon as we have factual confirmation of what is to come, we will zip it out to you through those media as well. Definitely let Mr. Ramos know if you need help getting to a tour or open house for your child and you can't bring your child, or if you would be willing also, if a middle school will allow, to take one more kid. Because no family's ability to get a child to see a school should ultimately impact too much whether or not that child goes. We want to make sure that every kid's got the best shot possible to have a really good and informed experience, and that is one way that families help each other out here. Lastly, this is a really different era in decision making with your child. It's a window on your kid to come. It is also so in that sense, it can be well managed, a really nice ritual to make as you begin negotiating with a teenager who's soon going to be moving in with you. And it's a great chance to start working on that stuff together. So definitely find some ways, in spite of all the uncertainty in the process, to enjoy your kid as a 5th grader and as a middle schooler with them. I think that's the end of our formal presentation. And we will stick around for individual questions from anyone who wants them. So thank you very much for listening.
Oh, if someone has that list for the ROT update.
So let's, I don't know.